Greetings, dear viewers and history enthusiasts. Today, I want to tell you about a very ambiguous figure from the time of the Second World War. I'm talking about Field Marshal Hugo Spurl, whose biography is full of paradoxes and contrasts. During the Second World War, when the world was engulfed in a brutal conflict, there were only 20 men in the ranks of the German armed forces who were awarded the highest military rank of Field Marshal. These were, without a doubt, the most influential and respected military leaders of the Third Reich. The most famous and perhaps the most tragic of them, without any doubt, was Field Marshal Paulus, who was awarded this honorary military rank literally on the eve of his shameful defeat and surrender, together with his remnants of troops at Stalingrad, which became a turning point in the war. It would seem that 20 people is not such a large number, and each of them should have been a model of professionalism, perseverance, courage, and of course, loyalty to their duty, setting an example for all personnel and being the pride of the German armed forces. But, as is often the case in life, among them there were also quite strange and contradictory personalities, about whom it was almost time to make comedy films, ridiculing the absurdity and ridiculousness of military reality, as well as human vices. One of these quite colorful and memorable characters was Hugo Spurl, whose career and life were full of unexpected twists and not always understandable decisions. Spurl was closely associated with aviation since the First World War, when he began his career in the military sphere, and when airplanes were just beginning to gain popularity and prove their effectiveness in combat operations. Of course, in those distant years, when technology was just developing, there was no such powerful and large-scale air force as would later be created in the Luftwaffe during the Second World War. But, nevertheless, the fundamental principles and approaches to conducting air warfare were laid down precisely then. Initially, he underwent serious training in specialized courses for artillery fire spotters, where he received the necessary knowledge and skills, learned how to correctly determine coordinates and transmit them to artillery so that it could deliver precise strikes on enemy positions. Sometime later, when he was already directly involved in active combat operations, he proved himself to be a very capable, competent, and, what is important, fearless air reconnaissance officer and, in fact, an artillery fire spotter, which earned him the respect of the command. From that very moment, airplanes so captivated, fascinated, and impressed him that he made a firm and final decision to connect his whole future life with aviation, even in that difficult and challenging period when, as a result of the First World War, Germany was categorically prohibited from having its own full-fledged and combat-ready air force, which, of course, created certain difficulties for the development of aviation in the country. Spurl was one of the few lucky ones who managed to get a unique opportunity to undergo training in specialized flight courses that were organized in Soviet Russia near Lipetsk, where he gained invaluable experience and skills in piloting aircraft, as well as mastered advanced methods of air combat. In addition to this, he twice made similar long business trips to distant London, where he also diligently improved his professional skills, mastering new approaches and methods, as well as exchanging experience with foreign colleagues. Well, a little later in 1935, when all previously existing restrictions were officially lifted, and the Luftwaffe finally became a completely legal and full-fledged branch of the armed forces, Spurl was among the first officers who were officially transferred to the ranks of the Air Force, which opened up new career prospects and opportunities for further development. He took a direct part in combat operations in Spain, where he first encountered real war and gained valuable combat experience. And then, with the start of military aggression from Germany, he managed to take an active part in military campaigns in Austria, Czechoslovakia, and even Poland, already in the rather high and honorable rank of general, which undoubtedly testified to his professional growth and recognition of his merits by the leadership. Well, then began perhaps the most interesting, ambiguous, and rather contradictory stage of his long military career, which to this day causes controversy and an ambiguous assessment by historians. I ask you not to forget to subscribe to my channel. And also, if you like this story, give this video a like so that you can continue to listen to even more exciting and informative stories about the events of the Second World War, and have a unique opportunity to familiarize yourself with the opinions of various parties participants on those or other key events of that tragic and contradictory time that forever changed the course of history. Sperl, together with his impressive air fleet, which was under his command, took a direct and active part in the attack on France, which, unfortunately, was not particularly eager to conduct active hostilities and therefore was occupied within just a few days, which indicates its poor preparation, indecision, and lack of proper combat power. Nevertheless, for his unrivaled bravery, exceptional courage, and personal example demonstrated in fierce battles, Sperl was promoted to Field Marshal, which is undoubtedly a rather honorable achievement and testified to the recognition of his merits by the higher command. But with this, so to speak, his career as an outstanding military leader and hero came to a logical end, and the beautiful fairy tale about the invincible commander ended rather quickly. Giving way to harsh reality, Sperl took a direct and active part in the Battle of Britain, which it would be more correct and accurate to call not a full-fledged and equivalent battle, but a crushing and devastating defeat, since his entire Third Air Fleet suffered simply colossal, irreparable, and devastating losses, which fundamentally undermined his combat capability, as well as undermined his reputation as a talented military leader. Sperl eventually became the only German Air Force commander who eventually had practically nothing to command, since he actually lost his combat-ready fleet, and only 4 battered and battered bombers remained under his direct command, which, of course, could not but affect his further position and prospects. But Sperl, unlike many other military leaders, did not begin to grieve and mourn over this sad occasion for long, and he did not begin to sprinkle ashes on his head. Well, he has no subordinates, and that's okay. As they say, nothing terrible will survive. Anything happens in war. He quite quickly, and without unnecessary emotions, chose the former luxurious palace of Maria Medici as a chic and comfortable residence in beautiful and romantic Paris, and apparently made a firm decision to become the world champion in doing nothing, passive pastime, demonstrating his well-being, as well as creating the appearance of vigorous activity, as other German officers wrote in their memoirs with unconcealed dissatisfaction and irritation. Sperl's self-admiration and showiness grew with every second, and he was no longer ashamed to demonstrate this to those around him, enjoying his position. He had become so accustomed to denying himself nothing and living on a grand scale, enjoying comfort and luxury, that over time he became quite portly, clumsy, and immobile, which of course could not but affect his physical shape and combat capability, and his such idle and carefree lifestyle did not bother him at all, but on the contrary, it quite suited him, and he enjoyed all the joys of life, not paying any attention to the opinions of other people and critical remarks. In March 1943, English bombers, completely unexpectedly for the German side, carried out a massive raid on Berlin. And that was when Hitler finally remembered the existence of Field Marshal Sperl, whose air fleet, in theory, was supposed to provide reliable protection against such sudden raids. But in fact, he, of course, did not do this. Sperl was required to immediately launch a devastating and powerful retaliatory strike against British London in order to inflict damage on the enemy and show him that the Germans were not going to surrender. But, as it turned out unexpectedly, a significant part of his aircraft were in a completely faulty condition and could not perform combat missions, since the higher command tried more to take an example from their commander Sperl, rather than dealing with their direct duties and, in particular, monitoring discipline, as well as the technical condition of the equipment entrusted to them, which led to sad and deplorable consequences, and prevented the Germans from achieving the desired result. Actually, it was for this reason that the German air fleet, after a raid on London, suffered another very significant and tangible loss, which, of course, could not but affect its further position and prospects, It was not possible to carry out a worthy retaliatory strike, as was originally planned, which undoubtedly seriously tarnished Spurl's reputation and caused dissatisfaction on the part of the higher command. In July 1943, Hitler, having thought a little and weighed all the pros and cons, decided to give Spurl a second chance, as they say, and once again show him that he still treats him with great trust and respect. After all, he's a field marshal. After all, which means he must live up to this high rank and justify the high trust placed in him. But here a rather serious and unexpected problem arose. This very field marshal, who needed to be urgently found to perform important tasks, could not be found anywhere, neither on his luxurious estate, nor at numerous military bases, nor at the headquarters, where he should have been on duty and perform his direct duties. None of his numerous subordinates wanted to take responsibility and admit that they did not know where their direct commander Spurl was, and everyone unanimously pretended that they had no idea where he was at the moment, which, of course, was quite strange, caused confusion and suspicion, with great difficulty, but it was still possible to find out that he had been carelessly enjoying life for more than a week under the warm rays of the sun on the sandy beaches in Biarritz, which of course could not but cause indignation, irritation, and clear dissatisfaction on the part of the higher command, which considered such behavior unacceptable for a military leader of such rank. Starting in April 1944, the British and American Air Forces began to carry out regular massive raids on German military units stationed in occupied France, which created a serious threat and big problems for the German army. But here again, another annoying failure occurred, and serious problems with the organization of the German defense were again revealed. It turned out that thanks to Spurl's exemplary and effective leadership, the Germans had virtually nothing to respond to these constant raids. Of the 890 aircraft available, only about half were serviceable, which was clearly not enough for a full and effective confrontation with the enemy, and did not allow them to launch retaliatory strikes. And when the so-called Second Front was fully opened, the so-called Spurl's army was opposed by a huge and powerful armada of about 14,000 Allied aircraft, which of course left the Germans no chance of victory and spoke of their imminent defeat. On that very historic day, when the Allied troops began their long-awaited landing on the coast of Normandy, Spurl's fleet under his command numbered about 400 aircraft, which seemed to be a rather impressive force. But the most surprising, sad, and revealing thing was that less than 200 were fully combat-ready, which indicated that most of the aircraft were in a faulty condition or were absent for some other, not entirely clear reasons. This was not even a full-fledged and fierce confrontation, but only a pathetic and insignificant attempt to demonstrate at least some resistance to the superior forces of the enemy. But it was not successful and, on the contrary, led only to senseless losses. In May 1945, Spurl, with a completely clear conscience and without any visible pangs of conscience, surrendered to the British, thereby demonstrating his unwillingness to continue meaningless resistance, and he, in general, was not eager to continue fighting. His current life, judging by everything, quite suited him, and he saw no point in further resistance. He was, of course, tried in Nuremberg, where he was supposed to be punished for his crimes, but, as you well understand, with the zeal and diligence that he demonstrated throughout the Second World War, it was quite difficult to fight serious and grave crimes against humanity. Sometime later, all charges against him were dropped, and he quietly and unimpeded went home to Munich, where he lived out his last days without feeling any regret or pangs of conscience. As they say, whoever has truly understood life does not rush anywhere, knows how to enjoy life and lives for his own pleasure, without thinking about tomorrow. This well-known expression, as well as possible, characterizes the personality and life position of Field Marshal Hugo Spurl. Goodbye, dear viewers. I was very glad to see you on my channel, and I hope that you have learned something new, interesting, and informative. For yourself, please don't forget to leave your meaningful comments, Give likes if you like this story, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss new interesting videos, and thereby support me in my endeavor.